Start it. You started it. Okay, that's a clap scene. Oh wait, I didn't even hit record in here. Okay, that's our clap scene. Let's see. How do we start a conversation about codependency?
Well, I got it. I'll lead the structure.
Got you.
So, give me a second so I can get in the zone. All right, a little bit of silence, so then now I can just transition into it. Hey yo, what is going on, everybody? It's Ideal back with the Ideal mentality. Today we have another episode in the Day in the Life series, and that is where we talk to people, and it's going to be more of a collaborative conversation today with our guest about codependency. So I wanted to introduce our guest real quick. What's going on, man?
Thank you, Ideal. What's up? My name is Zack Welsh. Say nobody. You already know this. Well, you already know this. I appreciate you for that, man.
There's more people who know. There's a little bit more people who know.
I appreciate you for having me on the show, man. It's a really cool opportunity to have to be able to talk to you in this type of setting, as well as being able to talk to you about this specific subject, because I feel like it's something that I feel like I have quite the experience in from past relationships and just overall just friendships as well too.
For sure. And I think I usually ask guests what attracted them to asking to join the podcast. In this case, I think I recruited you. And I think I recruited you because we have had a couple of trips to El Paso where we had conversations about things we were going through when our relationships at the time. You remember those trips?
Oh yeah, dude, totally. Specifically, it was the Ras Kass show. I remember that too. It was one of those times where we were both kind of getting getting lit and being like, man, you know what? The situation that I'm in is not really that good. It's something that's kind of holding me back and kind of really putting me in an even worse situation. It was kind of funny because we bonded over that too. You know what I mean? It was nice to know somebody else knew. You know.
And then I had my trip where I was going through it. The epic open mic bar night where I was just completely out of it. Do you remember that trip?
Oh yeah, with Random.
With Random and X and just a bunch of people who.
Oh yeah.
I had coordinated a bunch of people to come, and then I wasn't in the zone to be able to facilitate all of those people.
You did really well. I remember that actually. It was funny because people were all talking during my spot, but nobody, dude. Everybody heard your stuff. Everybody was going with it, you know what I mean. I remember that I was I felt like I had the weakest as far as the spoken word that was done there.
Yeah.
Random did some shit that was just absolutely crazy too. Like you did some shit that was amazing, but even Random too was damn. He came up in there with freestyles that were what the fuck. And we ended up going and drinking with him afterwards at King's X. I remember that.
Yeah. Good. Well, I was gonna say good times, but they weren't necessarily the best of times in those respective moments.
They were the best of times or the worst of times.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm interested in is what is your idea of codependency?
I guess it's just needing to be needed. It's somebody who wants to have a stake in your life without being able to I guess kind of do any work. I don't want to say it like that, but it's kind of the case. You know what I mean? It's being codependent in somebody's life. I feel is you're just a bit dependent on them as well too. You know what I mean? You find yourself needing them all the time. You find yourself in these situations to where it's just an unhealthy attraction that just continues to feed itself. So, it never gets better unless you get better first. I feel unless you really have an honest conversation with yourself, take some self inventory, and be hey, I don't have to create these things in my life for people to like me. I don't have to create these different methods of being liked or having to make friends this way and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Or having to have relationships with people through that. You know.
For sure. What was the phrase you had used earlier? I really like that phrase you had used earlier in your Webster's definition.
Oh, I believe it was the need to be needed.
The need to be needed.
Yeah, needing to be needed. It's somebody who, you know what I mean? You just have to have them around. They have to create a thing in your life. There's even people I guess this isn't something that I've necessarily experienced myself, but I mean, I think that there's also people who create needs in other people's lives, couples who don't have a car or something like that. You know what I mean? Somebody is they have a need there and they can still justify multiple things in their lives with, oh well, they help me do X, Y, and Z that's important in my life, and without them I can't do X, Y, and Z. Like there's people who put the needs of others in front of like their jobs, in front of all that. Like, you know what I mean? Like them being like, hey, my significant other doesn't like where I work, or my significant other doesn't like what I'm doing.
That's a interesting point. How, because there's, I believe, a dynamic within codependency where one person is the person who has a need to be needed, and I think the other person is the one who has an ability to create that illusion of them needing to be needed, like you said, and it just keeps feeding itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that can be challenging sometimes. I was telling you that my understanding of it is like a addiction to relationships, and I think that's, I'm not sure how comfortable I am with that definition because, you know, as a therapist, and I don't know your perspective on addiction, but a lot of people feel that addiction is a lifelong recovery. So someone who's codependent, it's a lifelong thing for them,
Yeah.
which is intimidating and scary, I think, for someone like myself who is going through it and has gone through it and is hoping to not go through it anymore. You know what I'm saying? What are your thoughts on that?
Even from I'm gonna say even from an intellectualized standpoint, where I have no emotion about like who you are and stuff like that, I feel like that it's not a lifelong battle at all. It's not a lifelong battle at all because, I mean, even with addiction, I feel like it just is a change of like perspective. Like there is a chemical aspect to it where it's like, yo, some people are completely hooked, and that is a lifelong like thing. But I feel like not all addiction is like that because each addiction differs and each person's
You're
relationship
right.
to something like that differs.
You're right.
I don't. Could you hand me that mouse over there? That shit just tried to stop on us. It just says the audio processing stopped due to conflicts. Boom. Cool. We'll just start from right there.
Let me see. Can you play back to see where it cut off at? Could you? Do you think you can run that part back? It doesn't have to be verbatim, just to be able to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we can. You can cut off like your part and then just link yourself back into that conversation as if.
I'm down, and it'll save it too as a punch.
Okay.
I think that I don't think that I don't think that addiction is lifelong. I also don't think that codependency is a lifelong thing because I feel like with addiction, everybody's relationship to it is different. You know what I mean? There's some people who have a chemical disposition, and they literally do have to fight that their whole life because it's within their body. But I feel like there's a whole other thing to be said about people changing their perspective as well, and the power of what that can be. You know what I mean? The power of changing the way that you see things, and how that can actually like affect like your relationships, so to speak, with addiction. So with codependency, I think because of the nature of that and the way that it's been developed, it's gonna differ. Like it's gonna be like, so if somebody is a really codependent person and the means that they got it from was like really deeply ingrained in like their family or something like that, and it's something that they practice all the time and they invest in and put all this work into, it's gonna be that thing. It's gonna be a lifelong codependency trip. I feel like with overcoming bad habits, because everybody always talks about, oh, how to pick up a good habit. If you practice something for like 3 weeks, you know,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean, nobody ever talks about, but how do you drop a bad habit? Like I feel like
it's a lot harder
it's either twice the length, I feel like, or 5 times the length, depending on like how long you've really done it.
because you have to break the old habit, and then you have to start the new habit. Whereas, you know, like if you're just looking to start the habit, you don't have to challenge any old thoughts or beliefs. And I think I'll use this as a transition point. I'm curious about where you think your tendencies have came from as far as background.
Let me think. I believe my codependency actually came from being the youngest child in my family.
Interesting.
I was, and I feel like this is kind of like an archetype, and I've seen it before in other children, where it's like, I was like, I put myself into reading a lot and being like really really smart, or I tried to be. You know what I mean? I was really into school and stuff like that, and that gave me a lot of praise and a lot of reinforcement towards like talking and like showing off like how smart I was or whatever. You know what I mean? And that kind of like made me more like annoying too to like my siblings and stuff like that, because my siblings, we have a 10 to 11 year difference. You know what I mean? So like for them, they were like going through all their teenage years, and I was like in diapers or like fucking watching
Yeah.
Barney and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel like in a lot of moments I would talk and I'd give ideas or whatever like that, and I wouldn't be like listened to very much.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like when one big root of this is somebody who listens to me like that, where I feel like it's somebody who is like super into all of my ideas and shit like that, because I have a lot of creative and sometimes stupid ideas, but like that's that's something that I had to work past as well too, because not every idea I have is a good idea. There was something I learned in time eventually that I feel like if my idea can't stand up to scrutiny, that's a fucking stupid idea. You know what I mean? It's not necessary at all. Like having something that you can actually, you shouldn't have to defend it in front of people, but if you need to, you have to have your reasons for being like, this is my why, and your strong reasons.
No, for sure, for sure. And I think in my case, I grew up a little bit like in contrast to my sister. I'm the oldest,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's kind of the opposite. Like my mom kind of empowered a lot of like what I did, and gave probably too much attention to what I did. So I think I'm kind of entitled to it in relationships now.
That's crazy.
But it's the same kind of process that I have to go through in order to work through it. Is like my not all of my ideas are good. Not everything I have to say is worth saying. And at what point did you realize you had these tendencies or these habits?
Man, there was a big relationship in my life that took up about 5 years of my life, and I realized that it was a person who I developed such a like in-depth relationship with. It was so toxic, but it was like so in-depth that every time we broke off, we would just have to like, we would just wonder what the other person was doing, and like we always needed the other person. It was a requirement that like constant attention was a requirement on both of our parts, and that's one thing too. Like it's like I fall into the hole of needing constant attention. I feel like that, but like now, actually that's the opposite for me. Like I work all the time now. I love my job. Obviously, like we're here right now. I mean, it's some place that I can always feel like I can be myself and come to, and it doesn't feel like a job quite at all. You know what I mean? It's something that really helps me out too. Like even with how I manage and prioritize my own life. Like the lessons from this have come into it, but. That being said, it's such a big part of my life that it's been really hard for me to even feel like that anymore. So it's cool that I've overcome it. I don't think that necessarily everybody should throw all of their problems into their work specifically, but like for me it worked out. The energy that came from that actually helped me like make creative things, like do things that I feel are creative or want to be creative, because I was like, fuck, like I can't just be cooped up in my head all day, you know what I mean? I can't just be depressed, and that's dude, like that's something. Oh man, you know what was crazy? I was thinking about this very recently that like the only like it's not as hard to overcome like depression if you're actually like doing a couple, like if you're doing like, well, it reminds me of what you're saying about physiological things. Like there are healthy things if you try to do a couple healthy things and you just set these goals to yourself and you reward yourself from the inside, almost like like you're giving a mouse a piece of cheese. Like you will always defeat that anxiety and stuff like that, and always defeat those things. But like you just have to make it something interesting for yourself. I shouldn't even say interesting so much as like
rewarding or fulfilling.
Yeah, some sort of fulfillment has to be gained from it. I feel like that's the best way to do that. But that's positive reinforcement only, I guess.
But that's not the right way to transition from what you just said. I think it's challenging because there is the rush that comes with that need being fulfilled. It's much more powerful than you have to adjust your brain to like moderate doses of like that dopamine, you know what I mean? And I think there's probably some chemical stuff like you described that for some people applies, and that's why it's so hard to defeat that. And it reminds me of the conversation earlier about detachment that we were having, and how some people seek detachment through substance abuse or sex or gambling or like the typical addictions. And also how there's a need for like a balance though. How have you tried to achieve that balance for yourself in relation, because I know you're a studioholic, you commit yourself to this. Where are you on that spectrum?
Let me try to think about how I feel about that. Could you reword the question one more time?
Yeah. Where do you see yourself on the balance between I guess you can argue that we as people have this a need for relationships, and codependency is on the far end of that spectrum, just like a lot of like abnormal behaviors are. And it's a matter of finding the middle rather than complete like, fuck relationships, like the independent woman memes, you know what I'm saying, or independent man memes,
Yeah,
like not some gender bias, but like, there's those people who, you can just tell like their vibe is, I want a relationship, but I'm really bitter against them.
Oh yeah. No, for me it's I maintain my balance by just like I know this sounds cheesy, but I really try to stay positive nowadays. Like I really try to find ways of just being like, you know what, I'm gonna distance myself from that entirely, or like I'm gonna figure out a way. And like if the way that I tried to figure it out didn't work, then maybe I'm just not meant to be in that situation. Like I feel like that I have delved into behavior that's similar to like, because I don't feel like I'm running away from stuff like that, but I do feel like, people say like, oh, cut off everything that doesn't serve you, kind of like. Yeah. I'm not gonna say that like everything in my life has to be cut off because it doesn't serve me, or this and this and that. But like recently, I've been very about that. I've been like, you know what, like I have to only work towards what I can work towards, what I'm available to work towards, what's gonna make me feel like emotionally okay to work towards. You know what I mean? Like fuck, dude, it's super hard. And honestly, I really love the people around me who have been able to like understand that too, to understand the like the limits and boundaries that I have, which is crazy because I feel like in the same sense that like I see that behavior in other people. I try my best to give a bunch towards forgiving everybody and just be like, it's whatever to me, like it's okay, like, you know what I mean, because that sense everybody should have, you know what I mean? Everybody should have that feeling of comfort, but like I feel like that's one that I continuously lean to.
And there are people, and I think that's the purpose of, cleansing out your circle from people who may not have your best interest in mind, because if you have a very forgiving attitude, they're capable of just taking that forgiveness and then just repeating the mistakes because they know your character and they know your tendencies to allow that, right? Is that something you've noticed historically with you?
Oh yeah, that's literally like word for word is exactly like what has happened to me over the course of my life. Is that it's like either I subject myself to stuff that's not okay and I just like rock with it, or there's stuff in my life that I'm like, well, you know what, I probably shouldn't have been here in the first place. You know what I mean? Like I go in there knowing for a fact it was going to be dumb as hell, but like I have this way about it, you know what I mean? There's so many things in my life that I do like this, where it's like I feel like I jump into something that could sound dumb as hell or seem dumb as hell, but I always kind of get what I need out of it. And a lot of it is mentorship. Like a lot of it is that way in life, like, you know what I mean? There's tons of like musicians, there's tons of engineers and people that I've like hung out with for like a good minute, you know what I mean, trying to like soak up exactly like their knowledge and stuff, you know what I mean? And even if it's like there's ways that I feel like that I've met people that like it's kind of interesting that I probably wouldn't be able to, you know what I mean, to kind of pick their brain on shit like that. Like I've had the ability to, and that's what I mean about it being crazy, is because there's some points in my life where I'm like, how did this start here and like end here, you know what I mean? Like how did I just kind of will myself to be in the situation to be where I wanted to be? It's something I think about a lot. Like people talk about like The Secret and stuff like that, of like manifesting your life and stuff. But I think that there's a certain like I even think that like, okay, let me back up. I think that there's a certain like ness to that. There's something correct about the idea of you can will something into existence if you really try. Like if you really put your mind to it and you take the necessary steps, no matter what, like nothing is gonna stop you unless you literally die. Like, you know what I mean? That's about it.
And it does come down to being able to break down every single part of your life, or at least in my opinion, and looking at what is directing me towards this goal and what isn't directing me towards this goal. And I guess to kind of backtrack a little bit, I'm also curious about like in the midst of codependency, what does that feel like for you? Like what is if we go back to the addiction idea, what do withdrawals feel like for you?
Man, honestly, with like that's probably the closest thing I could ever think to reference on that subject is like emotional codependency withdrawals are similar to drug withdrawals, because drug withdrawals in that sense, like you feel like shit. And I think maybe it's just the way that I process depression. Like my body physically feels like shit, and I have no motivation. Usually like generally cranky, and I mean these are like really simple like these are kind of like simple symptoms, but I feel like that's exactly what happens to me. Is it's very much like I sleep a lot. I'm like there. It reminds me of like heroin addiction and shit like that. Like, because heroin addicts like when they're getting off, there's like lots of puking and getting sick. It's even the same thing too. Like people get anxious and they literally like get like ulcers or like fucking like IBS or shit like that. You know what I mean? It's like whoa.
Yeah, and I think that is similar to my experience as far as how I think it's more of an anxious one for me, where I hear like depressive stuff for you. It's more like, you know that I think it's like a Patrick from SpongeBob meme.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's actually SpongeBob, and like it's blurred around him. It's like the kind of panic meme.
Oh yeah.
Like that's how I feel
Mr.
internally.
Krabs,
That was Mr. Krabs. That's what it was.
Mr. Krabs, yeah.
So that's how I feel internally, and it can be such like a sudden shift into that mode that I kind of don't even have the awareness that it's going on.
That's crazy. I've never even like you made me just learn something like right now that sometimes those manic swings like for me come from like those things happening or things that I haven't processed yet or things that I'm still like working through, you know what I mean? Or things that just happened recently. I'm like, why is my anxiety attacking me right now? It's like, well, why is it? Like maybe there are a couple of things that happened this week that you just haven't worked through yet or finished processing. It's very much like it's kind of funny because like I feel like it's like lately I've been adopting like the mindset that like the mind is like it's kind of like a stomach. You have to like take in these concepts and you have to like flesh it out and completely digest it, get the nutrients and separate the bullshit out of it.
I like that. I like that.
It's wild. Like I feel like I come up with a lot of different like food fucking like base like life things because I feel like I like the idea of like I like comparing life to cooking because it's a really cool art. Like it's like the way that people would like are nourished and shit like that. Like you know what I mean? It's like there's something about that. Like I feel like there's also something. I was talking about like manifesting and shit. Like I feel like that's one of those things you can like imbue like with energy. Like if you really fucking put your heart into something, you can like taste the skill or like your specific signature. The same thing happens with like music. I feel like the same thing happens with certain types of painting. I feel like also too like you know what I mean like on a weirder or more extreme scale like if you live in a house for too long it has like a vibe about it, you know what I mean, like you walk in or like there's two people in there and you don't know that there's two people in the house but it feels heavy and you're like why does it feel heavy right now not knowing that they just had like an argument like 10 minutes ago, you know what I mean? It's like whoa.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I wanted to ask, given that we are out here in El Paso, and in regards to codependency, like what would be like the Chico's tacos? And I guess this will depend on your interpretation of how Chico's tacos is to you. But like, what's the Chico's tacos as far as digesting stuff related to codependency? If that extended metaphor makes sense.
For me, I'm like nice. The hardest thing to digest. Like that's the way I would take it.
Gotcha.
I'm just joking now.
No, you can stick with
I,
that.
I do like the idea of it. You know what I mean? From like that was just the first thing that came to mind. I actually like. I don't eat fast food much. I haven't eaten Chico's tacos before. I know that's crazy to say, but I'm like.
Alright, so I haven't ate it either. So I think I'm just running out here trying to make a reference, and you haven't had it. So let's connect it. Let's Cruces reference.
Okay.
What's the hardest thing in your mind for Las Cruces to like digest?
Jesus. Like wow, like I guess that totally flipped like the question on its head for me. Let me see. Like the hardest thing for me to digest with codependency specifically is well when I'm being too needy, like it's hard to fucking like feel like I'm not being listened to, or it's hard to feel like I'm being ignored too sometimes, but like that's not something that I'm terrible at avoiding, like you know what I mean? Now like if somebody ignores me, I just completely ignore them. Like I know what I need to do. I need to step away from that cuz like I feel like that's even just like one of those things like if you find somebody who reopens that kind of like feeling for you, it's like where you feel like you have to act crazy or something like that, or you have to be like on their ass all the time. It's just so exhausting, dude. Like there's just like this mindset that I've seen like legitimately good people go through, and I see it. It's a mindset. It's a specific mindset, and it's almost like a disease. Like motherfuckers like go through these relationships that change them in a negative way. Like they were great people, and this relationship not only like fucks them up, leaves them high and dry emotionally, and it's like they've just become something because they made somebody else their world. And I'm like, man, like I've never really invested that much in a person before, which that in itself is scary.
Yeah.
But like I've seen this, like I said, this mindset of people who've just been like destroyed by this shit, and I just can't even understand it. Like, how do you find yourself after coming back from something like that? And I think that was a big part of understanding codependency for me, was like repiecing myself back together too was like that was the good thing about passing the digestion, I guess, of this idea, was like piecing myself back together, being like, you know what, like even recently too, like I also went through this recently, but like for my in terms of my relationship, Jesus, I feel like that I needed to be reminded by like going out and like hanging out with my friends and like getting back into music with them, like trying to learn through like OJ and like a couple of my friends who were like drummers and like jazz musicians and stuff. But I feel like you know what I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of deal with that energy. But in the sense that I was having it go down, like I think that you know what? Screw that. I'm just gonna go with the example I was thinking of recently. So the thing that happened to me more recently was that I moved out here to El Paso. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they say that moving is super fucking stressful, psychologically, just emotionally, all this shit. Well, I feel like when I first moved out here, I was in such a new dynamic. I kind of like reverted, like not to myself, but like I was just like freaked out about my surroundings. Like I was more like confused and more quiet, and I just like was unsure of where I was and unsure, and it wasn't even like a huge change. It's not like a big deal, but like it was actually after hanging out from a friend from my city that like I realized that like, oh man, like I am confident. I have done some really cool stuff. Like I am worth it. You know what I mean? It's weird, like, because like I put myself through this mindset sometimes where I like completely lose sight of self, and I want to say I know myself, but if I look at my track record and my self talk over the years, I feel like there's been a lot of contradictions, and I think
I feel that.
yeah, like having like the best thing for me was for me learning to shut up, and I've been getting better and better at that, and that's been the best for it. I mean, in a situation like this, obviously, it's not the point. Like shutting up is not the point, but like overall,
Sometimes it could be.
Yeah.
Sometimes it could be.
I mean, on your end, I feel like
Maybe yeah. Wait, what are we trying to say?
I'm just kidding. I'm fucking around, but
No, I think you said a lot of stuff that connected with me, especially I don't remember who I was talking to, but I hate being ignored, and I think I'm open to interpreting different things as being ignored, so I'm probably more susceptible to that than most are. And then the whole relationship changing people, like you met me in the course of my relationship and didn't know me necessarily before that, but it wasn't really me during the course of that time, like I was out of it, and I think that did resonate with me a lot, just because you do have to like kind of rebuild yourself afterwards. So you also have to have like boundaries though, as far as like if we go back to the food analogy, like I literally can't go to Five Guys because I know it gets me sick every time.
Damn.
Like I love the taste of it, I love being able to eat there, but after that I get sick, so I gotta stop eating there. You know what I'm saying?
I know that feel.
What's your Five Guys per se
That's
as far
kind of
as
interesting.
codependency?
That reminds me of a saying: "Too much of a good thing will make you sick. Too much of a bad thing will kill you."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how I feel about like that kind of like that overall. But I feel like that the thing that always gets me sick is I feel like it's jealousy. Like it's somebody who I know, and this may be something to do with like my taste in women. But there's a lot of points where I've been with women who actually are like kind of like fucking around on me or something like that, and like I try to be real cool, man. Like I'm real fucking cool about that shit. Like I'm like whatever. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't always that way, but like there's so many things I've been through where I'm like, you could literally do anything if you're in a relationship with me, and I'll be cool. But like the biggest toxic relationship that I was in, I was the exact opposite after a certain point. You know what I mean? But like I feel like nowadays that translates a lot better. To like, I mean, I shouldn't say translates better, but it translates a lot more to I don't care. Like, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, I just don't care. Like, I'm at this point in my life where relationships are really hard to imagine, so I have to like really stick with myself. Like, I really have to re-understand myself to really give myself to somebody else. There's things that I want to explore. There's things I want to do. So it's like, I'm not even thinking about that right now. But the things that I would always go through was like, yeah, it was always jealousy problems. It was either somebody that like for me it would be it would also come down to a balance of me being like, do I feel good about myself right now? Because if I didn't feel good about myself, I feel like that there'd be times where I'd be downing on my significant other. You know what I mean? I feel like there were things I could have done better as far as explaining myself, as far as like opening up the door for more conversation and communication instead of just also immediately getting like angry too. You know what I mean? There's a
Yeah.
lot of like, and like it's like I said, there's so many good people I've seen who just because of a good relationship have done something absolutely fucking crazy, and it's like you would never know. They'd be great people other times in life and stuff like that, but like that one part of their life when they were dating that one person, they did some absolutely fucking crazy shit.
Yeah.
And it sucks when people remember all that. Like that. I mean, I'm not the case in that, but there's people I know who have gone through that, and I think about that a lot. Where it's like, damn, like that's your self definition in a sense, or like that's how people are gonna define you a little bit because that's how they think or whatever, you know.
No, that makes sense. Pause. Let me know when we approach. We don't have to pause that. We can just like cut it out or make a marker if you want.
Okay.
But let me know when we hit like 38 minutes, just so I have my time management. Cause I'll try to look at the screen and I can't see it.
Oh, yeah, don't even trip. I need
Okay.
to change it back to minutes and seconds.
Gotcha.
We got about 10 more minutes on this.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. So, what are some red flags you've ignored in the past?
See, nowadays I don't ignore red flags. I'm pretty damn good at it. Like it's crazy, but some of the red flags I've ignored was, let's see, people threatening suicide if I would leave. I have ignored flags of, I mean, that was on the more extreme side. I probably shouldn't have led with that. Jesus, dark. But I guess,
I mean that's one of the more common examples too. So
yeah, like, and then I guess other things would be like the way that they react to things that I do, like small things. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's a lot of people who will think I'm doing something a lot when I'm not, or they'll be like, you know, why are you doing X, Y, or Z? And it's like I don't even know why I'm doing X, Y, or Z. Like I'm just doing it. There's no deeper meaning to what I'm doing. Like, you know what I mean? Or like even in that moment, there's smaller things like that. And I think with the manic energy that I bring with, a lot of the time it's easier to kind of get that flying.
misinterpret it or
yeah, misinterpret and kind of like get that going in the wrong direction is what I was kind of gaming for.
Okay. The making things a bigger or deeper meaning. I think that's my Achilles heel. I do that all. And I think I'm like, damn, like I do that all the time.
Oh man.
And I think as a therapist, being so analytical, it doesn't make it easy for me to stop. So like I'll look at something small and I have to be reminded like it's not that. It's not that.
Yeah.
It's not whatever you're thinking it is. It's literally just this moment in time, and it's reflective of that moment, and it's not reflective of bigger patterns or character. And I think that's where it kind of gets a little ugly for me. What about like substance use?
Substance use? How so?
Red flag.
Oh, red flag. Oh yeah, actually, definitely. That was one of the ones I should have thought of. I feel like I got carried away mentally, but like.
Yeah, you went straight to the home run with
right
this,
into the guardrail. Yeah, I feel like substance abuse is a thing. Like how much somebody drinks or how much they smoke. Like you can kind of be like, maybe that's not, or even like the stuff that they like, their diets, their habits. You know what I mean? Like, man, I think there was one time there was a girl that I was seeing, and it was the way she treated her dog that immediately I was like, this date is over. Like in the back of my head, like I wrote it out or whatever. You know what I mean? It made everything seem cool, but I totally ghosted that shit. I was like, that's fucking like, I don't know. She was just like smacking her dog and like talking shit to her, and just the way that she treated it like a subordinate. I was like,
That's gonna be me one day if I don't watch out.
jeez, fuck. That's facts. That's big facts. Nah, I'm just kidding. No, I love Shadow. He's a pain in my ass though. But I feel like I've gotten better at communicating with him since I've actually gotten. It's weird because everything in my life, I don't know if I make it this way or if it is just that way.
Interesting philosophical question.
Yeah, I can seek this meaning from it. Where even it's like, you know, like this dog usually like gives me shit. Like my roommate's dog just gives me shit all the time and like consistently doesn't listen to me and barks at me a lot. He's a good boy and shit, but like recently I feel like that I've gotten better at communicating with him by like A, not worrying about it as much, and B, just knowing to communicate with just my energy. Non-verbal energy is fucking huge, and I'm good at it when I'm not thinking about it. I'm good at it when the moments are organic, and I feel like everybody kind of is, but like there's an aspect of it like where I feel like I'm really good at it when it's like normal and shit, but I can't call on it like yet. You know what I mean? That's not something I can like really do all
like
the time.
Summon, like you can't just summon it on the spot.
Exactly.
No, I feel that, and it's interesting you bring up Shadow. Kind of, it's because I was talking to the homie Enoch about like the filters that he sets as far as when it comes to women. And I was curious about what filters you apply these days with the newfound knowledge and wisdom. Like, is there a preset list Like you kind of look through with women to filter them out or filter them in?
No, it's not necessarily a preset thing. I just think for me it's mainly like how can I say this? Like I try to conceptualize, like I try to make a concept in my head. I try to imagine it like okay, could I see myself with this person? Could I see myself in 5 years with this? Because like I'm generally pretty open. I'm like you know what I mean. I can justify a lot of people in my head like being like yeah, because I'm the leader of my life. Like it's not gonna trip me up to have like a girlfriend with lots of tattoos and piercings and shit like that. It's not gonna bug me. Or
Yeah.
a girlfriend that does X, Y, or Z, or is like you know what I mean. Somebody who like is different is something that I attract and enjoy. So it's not really like a problem with shit like that. But I feel like with the filters that I set, they're based more in like behaviors. Like it's like there's certain behaviors because also let's face it, at my core I have the things that I'm comfortable with boundary wise or even just like
Yeah.
from growing up wise. Like I'm just like that might annoy me or that just might make me not feel good or I just don't like the feeling of that. It has no explanation. I have no explanation, but I don't like that.
And you don't need to.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I mean, that's one of the things I learned through my work on myself is I don't always have to justify certain things that I prefer in life. And I think I've been so used to opening it up for discussion that it becomes question and it becomes like internalized doubt. So that's a good point. So like you look at behaviors, you just look at kind of like projecting forward and seeing how that fits, how you think it fits you.
For me it's like behaviors are like the biggest thing. Like there's women who like okay I love the ability to text somebody consistently too, but having somebody who consistently requires the what is it requires the validation is one thing. Like it's cool, like you know what I mean, if we have like an established good texting relationship I guess like or something like that, that's good. But like my phone is like part of my business and it's always blowing up, so it's hard to manage things. So if people require that consistent validation, it's hard for me to maintain. But I think that another thing too is it's like how much people are like invested in like themselves. Like I'm like, hey, like what are your passions? What are things that you like? And people are like, oh, I don't do anything. Or like girls will be like, ah, I just like stay inside, or I just like watch TV. I'm like, that's the worst fucking answer. Like I hate to sound like that. Like I never want to be the dude who fucking tells women what to do. But I'm like, if you're that type of woman, just develop like one thing. You don't have to. Like you don't have to like immediately go get a passion because people put that box on you to go get a passion. But if you're trying to fuck with somebody who believes in like passion and believes in that, like, you know what I mean? But have something to be like. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if somebody like that walks away because I'm like, that's how I feel about it. If you have nothing that you're passionate about in life, if you have nothing that you're practicing or investing in or doing, like, it's just boring to me. You're not a bad person. You still deserve to exist, and you still have all the things that you are.
Just not with you.
Yeah, I'm like, it's not something I want to be a part of.
Well, that's the issue. Like people who don't have their own world, who bring someone into it, that person can become their world, and then that's where the validation comes in.
That's true.
And there's that interesting distinction because I was kind of wondering about that for myself recently. Like as far as texting goes, it's like I like texting a lot, but I also don't want it to be used as a source of reassurance or validation. Like it's supposed to be like organic conversation, not a means of are we okay?
Yeah.
But I think I can fall onto both sides of that boat sometimes, to be honest.
And it's easy to. I think that's totally like there are some people who like I think it just depends on the couple's relationship. Like texting like somebody about your feelings is okay if you guys are like, you know, designating that moment, you guys communicate it well because you're both bearing in mind that there's no tone in texting.
Yeah.
If you're talking to somebody no matter what, like generally speaking, you're gonna get what you need to out of the conversation if you guys are both communicating how you should to each other. If you understand each other's boundaries, if you understand if you understand how the other person works, like I think that there's a lot to be said about the way that you're going to be approaching it too. Like for me, it's kind of funny because we were on such like a really like it was about the filters. I was thinking about this because there was even like a girl that I was seeing recently, and I was just thinking about the way that she was like it was I shouldn't even say recently. It was a good like almost like half of a year ago at this point, but like. It was somebody who I just completely like stopped talking out of nowhere because she was just so down on herself. Like I know this sounds terrible because with me, I like to be like the type of person who wants to help everybody, dude. Like I want to help everybody as best I can. But like
that could be fatal in relationships.
Oh yeah, well in life in general too.
Yeah.
Well, as somebody who like I wasn't paying them like a fuckload of compliments or anything because I was being mindful of it. You know, like I feel like there's people who seek compliments and fish for compliments and shit like that, and how you deal with that is how you deal with that. But with me, I probably used to do that when I was younger, but like nowadays I don't really do anything if somebody fishes for compliments, it actually like kind of irks me and shit. But it was somebody who I felt like was so like self defeating and so just like giving up, like that I just felt like it just wasn't right for me. Like it was like, you know what, I'm gonna dead this before this becomes anything, because just in general, like all you believe in is that you're going to fail, and that's like that's the most back ass word logic. Like I can't seek to understand that. I'm trying. I give it my all to try to understand people like that. But like, dude, fuck.
But not, you don't have to, you don't have to be in a relationship with them though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And
Did you say back ass word on purpose?
Yeah,
That's
of course,
funny. Okay.
I always try to make sure that I'm really careful with not helping everybody nowadays, because it's the same thing in relationships. Like, you just gotta like pick it up at a certain point and be like, you know what, you need to carry your fucking weight. Like, it doesn't matter what we've described as your weight, just carry it. Like, your weight could be like 5 pounds, could be 50 pounds, but as long like in my personal relationships, I never make somebody carry more. I feel like that the refinement of what I need is more of just being there for them in the right ways, not overdoing it, and kind of meeting their needs with the care that they see. There's so much I've learned over the years, and it's been a while since I've had a girlfriend, to be honest, because like there's people that I've like seen and like flings and stuff that I've had, but like I haven't had anything serious in a while, and it's been kind of nice. Like I don't even think that I think that shit happens organically usually. So I'm not really like worried about it myself, but like I feel like when the time comes, I'm gonna be a little bit shocked, a little nervous, but it'll be great, because it'll be like actually what I'm looking for. I feel like I've set some really good boundaries for myself at this point in my life. Like I'm like, hey, like this person should be, like just as open as I am. Somebody who wants to communicate about their emotions, somebody who wants to create and do things, because I feel like creativity is a big thing too. You want to be able to express your emotion. You want to be able to do shit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things like that. Like I feel like hobbies and being able to like work out, or at least having one thing. You don't have to work out all the time, but as long as we like have like, or if you like don't have to art all the time, as long as you have what you do, like I feel like it's never about how much money somebody's got in their pocket or anything. It's about the wealth of what they're doing in life, like where they're at and how much they believe in it, and if they care about it, and like if they care about it and they're good at it and all of that. Like I think that that's great. It's whatever your thing is. Like I've met people whose thing is fucking construction. I've met people whose thing is just like I don't know, like drawing, or like arranging flowers, from the smallest to the largest things, and that's just like what it's about. Like navigating a person and their thing. Like you know what I mean. Like you find this person who has a certain energy, and with it comes a certain energy of all the things that they do, and like you come into mind, and if you can like imagine that when you meet with somebody, I feel like you can get the most accurate idea of what needs you need to address of theirs, because there's a certain point where I feel like you'll need to address needs, and then there's a spot where it's like you don't. Oh fuck! I can't believe I just dropped that. Where I feel yeah. Nope. Fuck that up. My brain just went.
I'm sure. I mean, what I feel like you are going to is like there are moments of high needs within relationships, but it shouldn't be like the norm.
Oh yeah.
Like let's say like someone loses a parent, that's like where you step in a little bit more. But like if they're constantly in crisis mode, like an addict or a mental health person who struggles with their mental health quite a bit, like you're always going to be in this like savior mode, and that's going to drain someone. It's going to drain you at the expense of whatever you're trying to do for yourself, and so it makes complete sense why there has to be that healthy lifestyle, that they're living a balanced healthy lifestyle as far as hobbies, work, family, all of those different areas. So I think that makes complete sense.
That's so crazy. Yeah, that you brought that up. Like always in crisis mode. That's the one. Like that's literally like that's the big filter for me. That's the one that I always have to learn from, or that I've always been in. Is it's like, God, like I always have to do something for this person. I think that's even why I've just developed a disposition of not even doing that for others lately. Is just being like, you know what, like, fuck this shit. I dedicated so much to basically like being almost like a servant to this person and their family, or this person and their friends and shit like that. Like that's the way it felt like, because I wanted to love them that way. My love language is totally to care for people wholly, dude. Like I like to be able to do whatever they want whenever they need it, and to help them just have the best experience possible. But like, oh my God, like sometimes people will like, it's cool to to be like kind and generous, but like people extend that to other people, like overstaying the welcome of that generosity, and it's always fucking unwelcome. Like, I mean, like it's almost always unwelcome. There's been times where I feel like it was cool, but like for the most part, like the opening of that door can be so exhausting too. You know what I mean?
No, for sure, for sure.
Oops, it did it again.
Where did it catch you?
Oh, it's at 43. I don't mind. We still got time to it. I mean, like, I don't think anybody's here for anything yet, so I honestly think he's coming in at like 9:30. So like, I really kind of don't mind if we go over a little bit. Like, that is. Oh yeah, dirt. There we go. Yeah, cause he was saying I'll probably go to like 9:30 to like 12.
I usually aim for about like 45, 50 minutes on these ones, so.
There were a couple moments where I fucked up and I was like, we can
No,
clip some of that
you're
shit.
good.
You know what I mean?
Like, I think overall the conversation flows how it needs to.
Yeah, I feel that too. But I feel like there's some stuff too that I'm like, yo, if you want to completely clip some of that shit, like especially because like there was a little bit of rambling on my end. I feel like.
Yeah, it happened. I think there was only one point where we can. I don't think it even needs to be cut out because I redirected it back.
Oh yeah.
So
even when I dropped off too, I felt it was like dirt. But, like,
no, I think you were going somewhere with it.
I don't know. That's for it. That's for Tyrone, and that's for. Oh yeah, that is for Tyrone. That's their homies. That's their people. Could you hit the red button on that? Tight.
Did it cut you off mid speech?
Nah, not even.
Okay.
Nah, I just right now I've just got it running to just like.
Can we play back to where you were so I can
Oh yeah.
have an idea of how to respond to you? Yeah, I understand that. It's definitely why like those boundaries exist to be able to, be able to return and be a little selfish sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to be selfish sometimes, and it's something I've had to learn over the past year or so. Is like I need this, I'm gonna get this, or I'm gonna do this, even though it may not have the most comfortable effect on someone else. Because I'm constantly putting myself in someone else's shoes when I'm doing something for myself. Like, oh, I wonder how it'll impact them, and then it impacts me making that decision for myself, and that's it just sucks sometimes.
Yeah, I fucking feel that one too. I'm like, making it making decisions based off of your significant other too is like always the hardest. I feel like, crap, I fucked that one up too. Hold on. Let me hear what you said back. Oh yeah, my bad. There we go.
I do what you need to.
Oh yeah, okay. So I feel like that there's no such thing in this case as being like selfish and stuff. I don't think it's being selfish if you're like taking time for you. I think that that's like actually caring about yourself in those moments because you're protecting yourself in one way or another from like bullshit. Like something in yourself is telling you like, dude, fuck that noise. I don't want to deal with that. So you just gotta honor it sometimes. Like I think that that's the big thing. Is I'm like, even if you fucking piss people off or you let people know that like maybe you don't like them, sometimes you just gotta get away from the situation because you feel something deep within that you don't need to be around. Like,
No, for sure, for sure. And I had visited you after, and I think I had even told you this after I got catfished a couple weeks ago.
Man.
And I don't know if I think I had told you like the part of my brain that struggles with this had considered like not ghosting her because I felt bad, but ultimately like I knew the wrong that was done to me and like showing up, and you know what I mean?
I remember.
And showing up that way, and even in those instances where it's very obvious what I should do, I'm like, what about their feelings? And it's just not healthy.
Well, one way I think is a good way is like, yeah, like you could totally just be honest about it or you could just ghost about it, but like, yeah, I mean, like, there's something to it that not everything is necessary. Like, you don't have to say everything sometimes. Sometimes you just know. And I mean, maybe they don't
You're
get
right.
the closure of you having that communication, but there's some times where I'm like, bro, like, it's my boundaries. Like, I'm like, shit, dude. The harshest truth I think I've realized in this world is that like nobody owes anybody shit. Like for real. It's like we don't owe. You're not entitled to even good treatment by other people, and like that's
Yeah.
all right. Actually, like you know what I mean. That's their right as a person is to do whatever the fuck you want in this universe. You know what I mean? Like, but it's kind of crazy because like even I forget that sometimes. Like I'm like, well, why aren't you not a dick, or like why aren't you like polite or something like that? And I'm like, that's just their way. Like you just that's like how some people communicate. They communicate with that way.
And you
know?
choose to interact with them or you choose not to.
Yeah.
And then you just keep on doing that over and over until you find people you can surround yourself with that works out for your goals and your well-being, right?
Yeah, the things that are most parallel to the way that you approach shit. Like I feel like that's a good one. You know what I mean? Like having the ability to really kind of like figure your shit out too, in that sense is really really rewarding.
For sure. What are what are some takeaways in regards to your life experiences and the lessons you've learned on codependency that you'd want to share to people who are listening who may have struggled like you or us?
Man, with codependency, I just gotta say, you just have to find the way to make yourself the center of your universe. Like at the end of the day, like maybe not even the center of the universe. Like this is cute comic. I've been fucking like quoting a bunch, and it's about like, you want to be a planet in their galaxy, not like their whole world. And like that's all I want is I'm like I don't want to be somebody's whole world, and I don't want them to be my whole world. I want them to be a part of everything that I'm doing. Because for me, there is no necessarily whole world. It's a whole bunch of worlds, and like a whole bunch of different plants in my garden that I gotta maintain. Like,
Yeah.
if I don't feed one of them, it's gonna fucking die. Or if it gets sick or something like that, it's gonna get the other one sick, and it's gonna affect other things. Like, there's so many cause. Like, my life is cause and effect anyway, so I just have to maintain that shit. Like, I think that there's at this point in my life, I can't even have an excuse for not having a lack of life skills or yeah, for having a lack of life skills, and I don't, which is cool. Like I actually like manage to do my shit. I'm pretty on top of the way that I approach my life, I feel like, and but I feel like too like, well, it'd be hard to. Oh yeah, there we go. And then could you hit the red button again? Yeah, it'd be hard to make that necessary. You know what I mean? It'd be super hard to make that necessary.
Where there's a sun, where that person is the sun
Yeah.
in your galaxy.
Yeah, I agree. It'd be super hard to make somebody like my whole world, because I'm like, dude, there's just too much shit. Even before I got the job that I have now, it was pretty much just I should have been thinking this way a long time ago. I shouldn't have been so codependent. I should have learned to love myself more, because me loving myself more made me realize that sometimes people just have me fucked up. Like that's what it is. That's what it comes down to. It's like people like are literally like there are times where we can't interpret everything as disrespect, but there's so many things in life that people are literally disrespecting us to our faces, and you just gotta be like, look, man, like you just need to take control of the situation. There's strength in it too. Like if you make strong decisions, you sometimes you literally stop those things from happening. Like I described this like the same like there's just I think I was talking about this earlier today. It was talking about talking with your energy, like. So we spoke of Shadow earlier. Like he was barking at me earlier this morning, and I wasn't having it. Like you know what I mean. He was barking. And he got so used to it that I saw his I want to say I saw his guard drop. So I like quickly like without even looking up, I like swung out like the two fingers, my index finger, and my middle finger, and just lightly bapped him on the nose, and I caught him. Usually he's like really quick, and he starts being like, "We're playing, ha ha ha."
Yeah.
But like I fucking caught him, and like that, like right then he was like, "Oh, you're not fucking around," and I was like, maybe violence isn't the best example, but I feel like that like there's a certain aspect of your energy that when you talk with your energy, people will follow. You know what I mean? There's times where you literally just have to give off the vibe, and it's not about how you look, it's not about how you do, but it's kind of it. I mean, in some cases that is all like it's all of it encompassing, but for the most part, if you just have that, you're good. You know. I feel like that having the right energy about the way that you approach things is always going to be the best. But like how you transmit energy to others is how they're going to interpret the situation 9 times out of 10 over your words. Like everybody kind of like follows that weird caveman brain like lessons like that. I shouldn't say everybody, but there's a really high percentage of the population that thinks that way. I feel like.
No, I hear you, and sometimes situations do just call for action. They don't call for reasoning it away or minimizing it. It's just like, I got to do something right now to stop this.
Yeah.
And I think codependent people can fall into the habit of justifying it or over empathizing and all of these other fucking Jedi mind tricks that we use to allow those relationships to stay in our life when they have no space. So I definitely appreciate the talk about this, man. It's a good conversation. I'm glad I was able to recruit you in for this. And, I think that there's a lot to be gained from this. So appreciate you talking. And any last words before we part ways?
Let me think. Yeah. Basically, nope, I have no last words.
No shameless plugs?
No shameless.
You can shameless plug something, man.
Well, I'm gonna shamelessly plug this. Well, the studio's already been shamelessly plugged, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, we did.
Star City Studios, Productions and Home Gallery. It's off of 120 West Castellano. It's where we are right now. It's a super dope recording studio.
Very much is.
It's got some great ownership. It's got great management. I mean, I work here, and all of my coworkers are dope. I like to think I'm kind of dope. You know what I mean? Like I've got some cool stuff going on, so come see me. You know what I mean? Yeah, I appreciate you too, man. This is a really great opportunity for me to actually like even kind of like revisit some things in my life, because it was a nice reminder for me to be like, hey, this is how I was. Like, it's kind of like what I was saying earlier, like I had to be reminded of who I was before. And I think that this was exactly another moment of that, being like, hey, another milestone, another piece of progress, because things are going really well right now for me.
For sure. I appreciate you, man. We'll see everyone later. Peace.
Cool. Can save that. In the mixing process, I'll do a lot more like live clips, and I'll send you like rough drafts and stuff like that.
Sounds good, man.
Let's do this.
Yo, should I cut? Right?
Oh yeah, totally cut on that one.